Hello and welcome. Coming to you from Moonrise Towers. I'm Josh.
And I'm John, and consume a lithid tadpole? I think I will.
She's creeping me out. But this is a Geek ETC podcast, where we dive into all things you can geek out about. Hey, we're back.
And we're back. John's no longer at a beach. He is here in the podcast.
You are in person, which I feel like that's been a minute.
I know.
Been quite a minute, but I'm glad to have you back here, friend.
I'm glad to be back, friend.
Hopefully you enjoyed your time relaxing, or time away, I guess.
Indeed, yeah. We recorded one episode in Hilton Head, and then so I did a week in Hilton Head, and then I did like 5 days in Cape Hatteras in the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Right.
And it was okay. Hatteras Village, it was just a little, it wasn't like my favorite thing in the world. I really love Hilton Head, but
right.
It was fun overall. It was a nice trip. Lots of good stuff. A lot of driving, unfortunately. Luckily, I have, I'm listening to the part of the Stormlight Archive. It's a series. Archive? It's a series of books by Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, I've heard. Yeah. Heard you mention him before.
Yeah, and I'm on the third one. I'm on Oathbringer. I've listened to the first two.
And you're doing this on Audible?
Actually, I bought it on Spotify originally because
Spotify has books.
Yeah, you can buy them on there.
Oh, I didn't know they had books.
I did that originally because it was easier to play. Like I was playing on my Xbox and like listening to things through it.
Yeah, you can do Spotify on the Xbox now, and I forgot about that. I haven't played my Xbox in like a long time.
Yeah, thank you, Baldurs Gate 3. Yeah, same here.
We'll get into that in a minute.
But I've not played it on there in a while either. But luckily, because it was, a good 30 hours, or not quite 20 something hours of driving all put together, every trip I made from Hilton Head to Outer Banks. It is a long time. So it was nice having that book to like let me through. Luckily, my wife just kind of like doesn't pay attention to it because I've got it going in the car, like I've got it going as like a.
Yeah, I've done that on a few trips that me and my wife have done. Usually our trips like maybe like 4 hours, one way going east to visit some of her family or something, or even like 2.5 hours. But she's like, her superpower is being able to just fall asleep anywhere. So if I'm playing a podcast or something, it doesn't matter at all because she'll just lean the seat back and just be out.
There you go. That's perfect.
And then I can I can play whatever I want and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Luckily my wife has not fallen asleep in the car because she's got to grab me when I'm getting too close to vehicles, she's a good co-pilot for sure. She is
That's
like
important.
We did a road trip to Kansas, when we first started dating.
Man, that was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, more than almost 12, 13 years ago. And we were doing a drive there and she had never driven like that far. And it wasn't like the GPS wasn't as good at the time, and I was really annoying. I don't know why she put up with me, but because I was used to like how my father, who would make these 14-hour drives from Kansas to East Tennessee all the time, how like organized he was. And it's like one
all
of
the routes plotted out and maps and stuff. Yeah,
it's like one of and I would get frustrated with myself sometimes, and so I think that's like one of the things that rubbed off on me the worst. Of like, I had a great childhood, but man, those drives, 14-hour drive one way, that
sounds miserable.
It was
like the longest that I think I've done is like when my family would go to Panama City, Florida. That's like 9.
Yeah,
and there's even some times with that we stopped and stayed in Atlanta halfway through. And then got up like early the next day and made the second half of the trip.
Yeah, I can't do that. I have to go. I'll go now.
Like you'd rather put up with it and just get it done.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, but I remember like when we were like in a little Plymouth, remember those Plymouth minivans, like the blue with the wood paneling on the side? That's what we had. We had one of those. And then I'm a kid. My brother and sister are significantly older than I am.
Right.
My brother's 8 years older than me. My sister's 10 years older than me. And then me. And we just annoyed. We would get in fights all the time. It was just.
I can see that.
I remember I was like 5 years old. I turned around and punched my brother in the nose for no reason. Like busted his nose open. And poor guy was just trying to talk to me about something. I think I don't know
Right.
why I got mad, but
Yeah, we didn't really do any of those longer trip family vacations that long till, like later teenage years kind of thing. So, we were already had our own things at that point, or had like devices of some kind, a Game Boy or a smartphone, or, something like that to kind of tide us over.
I remember my brother when he was in college and had his own vehicle. We had gone somewhere together as a family, but he had his own car. Or we got him a car or something. I don't remember. But then I drove back with him, right, to wherever we were going. So it was just me and my brother, and me and my brother get along well. But I remember I had bought this like CD-ROM for this Vietnam War game,
Of course you did.
first player shooter, first person shooter. I think it was even called like Nom or something like that. I remember daydreaming about like what it would be like, this multi-hour drive all the way home, like looking, I've got the CD case and I'm pulling out the inside pocket thing, and I'm looking at the like
instruction booklet when it actually had cool information in it.
Yeah, I'm like looking at all the guns. I'm imagining. I remember like imagining what would have been like a Call of Duty now. Is like maybe this is what this will be. And it wasn't. It was horrible. I had no idea how to play multiplayer games. It was just like a solo thing. I don't even remember there being a campaign really. It was trash. But
I feel like I remember a similar booklet or something like that for Medal of Honor Frontline. I may have even had the Prima guides, like the bigger book kind of thing that has the full walkthrough and talks about like all in depth all the stuff of the game.
Yeah,
I know I had that for a handful of. You think it might have been GameCube games? Yeah, I think GameCube was when I had started collecting a lot of those bigger books like that. Because I know I had one for like Super Mario Sunshine, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and a couple other ones too. I forget.
My little boy's 7, and so like he did pretty well on these journeys. Like I used to get so frustrated when he was a baby. Obviously he can't control himself, he has no idea what he's doing, but now that he's 7, trying to keep him on track. And luckily my wife, she handled all that. She had a tablet ready. He's not like an iPad kid.
Right.
I get why people are iPad, they have iPad kids, but my son's not an iPad kid. He watches YouTube and plays toys. He doesn't play video games at all yet.
Yeah.
And but we had all the stuff downloaded on Netflix. We had like a external battery.
Oh, nice.
Just one of those juice things plugged up, ready to go to recharge that, plus a DVD player.
Hey, there you go.
So he could watch his Godzilla, like his 1960s Godzilla shows.
I love that he's so into like kaiju and monsters and things.
Oh, I can't even tell you how much he's into like the monsters are so hard to find. I probably talked about this before. The monsters are so hard to find anywhere than eBay. So my wife makes them out of clay. So he'll be like, can you make, Gygus or, one of these crazy monsters from Ultraman? And we counted like 40 or 50 something that she's made for him so far.
Wow.
And they've cut it. They cut it for him. He's fine with it. Now he gets pissed off when the ear or something comes off, but then we just super glue it back on.
You can repair it.
Just put super glue right back on it. So yeah, he's got like all different colors. Matter of fact, he's like, "Did you get clay?" Every time she comes back from the store, because it's always, I don't know when he'll run out of kaiju.
That's kind of awesome that she's made his toys though.
It is. It really is.
It's got like some old fashioned charm to it.
It really does, and he loves them, and because he couldn't take them all with him on the trip.
Yeah. Because
obviously they're clay. We weren't going to let that happen and him break all of them or them come apart.
Or have a car full of broken melted clay or something.
So he brought like one. But he had like a whole, like I'm talking a whole duffel bag full of toys.
Right.
Because we don't care. I mean, it's not that big a deal. I remember my wife and I both talking like, my parents would never have let me do that. But we had like a whole bag dedicated. I mean, a whole bag, large duffel bag full of his toys.
What's a bag of toys? Like that's, if that's what you want to, especially like on vacation, you want to do what's fun.
Yeah. And that's
like, if I was a kid, I'd play with toys.
Yeah. And he did.
That sounds like an awesome vacation.
And he did. He loved it. And, but he got a little homesick, and we were all kind of homesick when we were in Hatteras. And my sister-in-law, who was house sitting, she sent us a video of he wanted to see all his clay monsters. He woke up and was sad because he missed his clay monsters.
Oh wow!
She sent him a video, and that made him pretty happy.
Man, I'm excited to when we go to Japan in a couple months and go to like the Ultraman store. Like I can't wait to see what they have there. I'm totally just gonna like take some like videos or shots of like the wall of like things and just send it and be like, which one of these.
Oh yeah, and I will be number one dad forever.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you'll be his number one, pseudo uncle forever.
right. Exactly. Like they have like a legit from Japan Ultraman monster or Godzilla monster or something.
Yeah, that would be dope.
What I was thinking he'd probably freak out is I don't remember the street is. I think it's in Shinjuku. But there's like a Godzilla street where there's this one like really popular street, and at the end of it, there's like there's tall buildings everywhere, but in the corner, like look above one of the buildings, there's like a life-size Godzilla.
Oh wow!
Looking over the building, like the old style Godzilla from like the '60s, like onto like with his like hands and his head over top of the building, like looking down at you and stuff. So I'm like I want to take a video of just walking through and then just panning up and seeing that.
Oh, he would lose his mind.
Yeah. Can't wait to see that.
We actually did stop on the way from the Outer Banks back to here for a few hours. We left really early. We left at like 6 a.m. from the Outer Banks, and we got in Raleigh right around 1:32. And if not a little bit before that, maybe I can't remember. Before 2, because 2 is when we watched the movie there. But we went to the North Carolina Science Museum.
Oh yeah,
the big one, and they had a lot of dinosaur stuff. They had they've got a skeleton of a blue whale hanging from the skeleton.
I bet that's like
so big.
Yeah, that if anything will make you feel tiny.
It's so
like
huge.
Something like that is out there still, like swimming in the oceans.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I love whales. I think whales are like, I don't know why, they're like a comfort. I love watching them. Every time I talk to like an ocean person, I'm like, have you guys seen whales? I'm like, oh yeah. Like in Hilton Head, we do a lot of dolphin stuff.
Yeah.
And I always ask, like, have you guys seen, even though I've asked them before, but I asked one of the guys this time, he's like, he's like, you gotta be like 30 miles offshore to see like the right whales in that area. And, but yeah, I would love like the people that live in the Pacific side, on the West Coast, and get to go out there and see like the humpbacks and stuff. Man, that must be crazy.
Or if you're like up in like the north, in some place like in the Icelandic areas or something, suppose you'll see the orcas or various other things like that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be sick. So, but he really loved that. There was a lot of dinosaurs there, a lot of dinosaur fossils, and so we had planned that before we even left, that we were going to make that stop on the way back from Hatteras, and we did a few hours there, and then watched a 45-minute. There was a 3D movie there, or like dinosaurs in Antarctica, and
that's cool. Yeah, I remember as a kid going to one of our local malls here, and they had like a walking with dinosaurs exhibit. Sort of thing where they had this room that was kind of blacked off, and like there was no light in it, but they decorated the whole interior with big, like, I don't remember if they were actually animatronic or if they were just like figures or something, but they were like life size, a bunch of dinosaurs and everything. And I have vague memories of walking through there and seeing all those dinosaurs. I thought it was like the most amazing thing as a kid. Oh yeah. Well,
Knoxville Zoo right now, I think they still have it, and they're going to have it in through the fall. So they have a dinosaur thing at the Knoxville Zoo is actually pretty nice, I think. Like I went to the Asheboro Zoo, which is like the North Carolina State Zoo, and it's like the one everybody's like, you got to go to the Asheboro Zoo. You got to go to the Asheboro Zoo. That's like the good one. I wasn't impressed with it, to be honest. It wasn't. After going to Knoxville beforehand and then afterwards, I feel like Knoxville has a better zoo, technically, and just better exhibits, easier to get around. It makes more sense. You're doing like a giant loop versus theirs. Like you got to go all the way down to one side, and then you can either walk all the way back through everything you've already seen, or take a tram. And, but Knoxville, they have all these animatronic dinosaurs along the trail, huge life-size ones. They have like a huge Dilophosaurus that'll shoot water at you out of its mouth, which is kind of cool. So, but that's a pretty dope thing. I've got a video. I've been trying to, I think I've talked about it before. I'm trying to find because tonight will be the night that like that meme, that TikTok meme that was going around. It's not as popular now, but there's one of the Velociraptors or Utah Raptors on display there. And all its feathers and like kind of hair was like kind of hanging in front of its face like an emo person.
Oh, like an emo haircut.
So I wanted to make that. Yeah, I wanted to make that into a whole thing. Be on the lookout for that. Or if you're one of our listeners and have that audio, send it to me so I can put it on there.
That would be funny. I'd
But
like to see that.
I mean, one of my favorite things that we did on vacation, or I did on vacation, separate, was August 3rd.
Oh,
Baldur's Gate 3 released. And we've talked about Baldur's Gate 3 several times.
yes.
And we're going to talk about it a little bit more now
Right.
before we get into our main topic. And that's because it is.
Yeah, not even lying. I'm sure we'll talk about it numerous times because this has kind of enraptured us both as a game. Baldur's Gate 3, like I think I'd mentioned to you when you first came over, it might be my like game of the decade or something. It's been a very long time since a game has really captured my attention, and in multiple facets. It doesn't matter like where we're going in this game, like we're constantly getting like surprised by environments that we're in, enemies that we're facing, things that we're doing, conversations that are happening. Like it seems like every corner we turn, we're just like kind of flabbergasted like at what we run into.
Yeah, and we had played through the first act so much, where a couple of playthroughs in the first act in pre-release in the early access period. And after that portion, and there were still some things in there that were surprising to me.
there's things like, I mean, there's new items and different things that we hadn't done and things we hadn't found.
Things we hadn't found, like.
Yeah, I'd played it, I think, all the way through like 3 times before that.
Yeah, and
there's still things I didn't see.
Finally, things we didn't find and whatever. And then now with the addition of all the classes and doing all, it's definitely like a breath of fresh air. There's a lot of replayability there, we feel. But getting into it, now that we're moving towards the second, Josh and I have not finished the playthrough yet. We just looked at it before we got on here, and we're close to 44 hours of gameplay in our co-op campaign that we're running. And it is, there's been a number of times where Josh, you and I have said, like, wow, this was impressive. Like, that was an impressive thing.
Either that or I was not expecting that.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. And not in like a silly way. It's not like, oh, let's just throw a giant chicken into the mix.
Right.
It feels immersive and cinematic. You feel a big part of that. We had one of those classic, it's not something that you run into a whole lot, but we had a scenario last night playing.
Yeah.
Where we had to defend something, which is like, first of all, I didn't expect to have like a defend, like you need to defend this thing for 3 turns.
Yeah. Somebody's doing a thing. You have such amount of time or turns to, keep the enemies at bay while they're trying to accomplish their task.
And I normally hate those type of things.
Yeah.
And first of all, it made sense where we were, why there was waves of enemies coming.
Yep.
Right? So that was something that was nice. Why we needed to defend this thing also made sense. Like it was spelled out to us ahead of time by the NPC. And then you get into like our ability to actually accomplish the task and think creatively. And, Josh casts a spell, like area of effect spell that lasts for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that effectively just turned the battle in our favor. And like, I felt borderline her, like, in that sense of the word, I felt like a little bit of hair. I was like, oh, we're doing like this last stand type of thing.
Yeah.
Like it felt good.
I'm already kind of thinking like, I kind of hope we have another one of those scenarios, but maybe even on a bigger scale or something.
Yeah. I can't even imagine there were a lot of enemies. Luckily we just killed them very quickly. I mean, they kept coming, but that was because originally we killed that first set of people, and then more came out of the woodwork, so to speak, and it was pretty awesome. The environments, the textures, the sounds, the voice acting, get out of town.
And then the like cutscenes when you're like watching conversations happen and stuff. I said multiple times, I'm like, I feel like I'm just watching a TV show or a movie or something.
Yeah.
And like some of them would go on for a little bit, and I'm just sitting here just kind of enthralled in what I'm watching.
and the fact that you have so many NPCs that you can have as your backup characters, as your companions, most of which have their own origin story where you can play as them versus your own custom character, but just people's voice acting and the way that they're doing things, like, listening to Gale the wizard talk, like, it is top notch voice acting.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are, and there's like a decent connection with all of them, and I really enjoy it. We keep finding really cool new items. I mean, we spent the first half of our playing session a day or two ago just shopping.
Oh yeah, we had our generic D&D shopping episode,
and we were running out of cash, and we were like, oh, and I even gave you money at one point to like buy stuff for another teammate. That's the other thing is like normally when we have companions, I don't upgrade them that much,
right?
A lot, I'll give them some cool stuff, but like
you keep all the cool stuff for yourself.
But because of there's different classes and restrictions and other things, like, or they don't make sense, like, we're really trying to optimize, like, you gave me, like, I'm giving you stuff, you're giving me things.
Like in a lot of looting, loot games and stuff, you'll open a chest and you'll find the like legendary item or the like very rare thing or something. And of course you typically want to be like, well, I found that, I want to use it. But then due to the complex nature of your venturing party, with different classes and abilities and skills, you're looking like, well, you have, used, these kind of swords or this kind of, you usually deal acid damage or whatever it is. And so like you don't really care to let one of the other teammates use this like super rare item because it would help buff them that much more and just make the whole party that much stronger. It just makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So that's nice. It's nice because then the companions even feel more like actual companions.
Right.
And, you controlling one, me controlling another one. We also get like...
I mean, we're essentially playing two characters.
Which is nice.
Right.
You get that feel from it.
And I feel like that keeps the gameplay kind of fresh, too. That, I'm playing my custom character is a monk.
Yeah.
But my secondary companion that I have with me is a barbarian. So they're both kind of like melee fighters for the most part, but it's still different kinds of combat.
Yes.
And things. But you could even mix that up. You could have a spellcasting wizard and then a fighter. Yeah. And that would be a great kind of refreshing mix of both things.
And I'm playing like a druid, but like a sports druid who is more melee based. I'm dual wielding weapons. Mm. And then I'm playing with Will, who's also the warlock. So, I'm Eldritch. And that's the thing, people talk about like Eldritch Blast. It got made fun of a lot. Like even if our listeners are familiar with the Critical Role campaign, like Critical Role campaign number 2, where Travis Willingham, had Eldritch Blast.
Blast.
That was like his main thing he would do. And it is kind of like the go-to like damaging spell for warlocks. But when we play it, I've said it multiple times. We're up to level 8 now.
Yeah.
Thousands of XP, 44 hours, and I still don't get tired of him doing it because it just absolutely, when he throws somebody, because it's got a...
Yeah, you have that augmentation to it that it will blast people back, like, was it 15 feet or something?
Yeah, 15 feet. And so, like, we're like, oh, snap. Well, let's get him close to the edge of a cliff. And then see ya.
Yeah, if we just stumble upon some bad guy that we, if you fought head on, it might be a little tougher problem, but even in the middle while I'm talking to him, you just blast them with that, and then they go flying off a cliff and then never to be seen again.
Exactly.
I'm like, all right, well, that problem solved.
You're going to arrest my friend for stealing? Not so fast. You've wandered too close to the edge, friend.
Eldritch
Blast. Knock him off.
Yes.
So, but here's the thing. We're not the only people playing Baldur's Gate 3, Josh and I.
Not by a long shot.
Not by a long shot. There are a lot of people playing Baldur's Gate 3. It has become a extremely popular game. As of now, I think it's like one of the top 10, I think I can safely say top 10 video games on PC of all time. Right? Steam.
You're right. It took number 1.
It's number 1 today?
Like, yeah, like it was a couple of days ago. It hit, like, at least as far as I don't remember
concurrent players,
or it wasn't concurrent players, but I think as far as like reviews,
Oh,
or
it's the number
something.
one.
It was
Yeah.
like the number one game,
So
number
it's
one
the,
PC game.
it is the number one reviewed PC game as well on there. So with that said, and
Yeah, I think on Metacritic, who kind of aggregates all the different review scores from around, the webs and stuff. They took it from Disco Elysium, the Final Cut, I guess was the number 2.
which I've
And
never even heard
yeah,
of before.
I think I've heard of that, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. So it's also one of those, the game that's like, seems like this entire genre of gaming, which is not typically, your or I, what we enjoy playing. But
Right.
it's brought that to the forefront. But here's the thing. We all know, and we've talked about it before, and if you're listening for the first time, Baldur's Gate 3 is based on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition gameplay. There's obviously some differences, but if you were a D&D 5e player, you need to be playing, or you should try giving it a shot.
Yeah, if you've got a decent
PC.
PC that has a dedicated graphics card, then you can give it a shot. Or what's the NVIDIA, the GeForce
GeForce Now, which I was playing that originally with
Yeah.
you, but I was playing in like a condo and the internet wasn't
Right.
amazing. So
That's a good alternative, though.
It was a good alternative. But you don't have to worry about the spacing on your computer because you can play on the NVIDIA GeForce Now without having to have the game downloaded. But I will say this, you can also, it's going to be coming out for PlayStation and Xbox, PlayStation first and Xbox afterwards later this month. Don't know when Xbox is coming out.
Xbox will probably be the end of the year.
Really?
The only thing that they're really waiting on is that's the unfortunate thing is with PlayStation, you've got the PlayStation 5, and that's the only model of the system. You just have the one to get it, and it's their powerful machine. So it works on there. With Xbox, you got the Series X and the Series S. You have the 2 versions. The Series X, I think they've got it because it's the more powerful one. It can run on it. It's got enough RAM. Everything works fine. But it's the Series S that they're having frame rate issues on because it's just slightly of an underpowered machine, as far as I understand, as far as like the RAM goes and how that works in it. So, as far as I know, once they get the Series S version, running smoothly and stably, then they'll release it on Xbox because they kind of have to have it work for both systems to be able to put it out on that. So all the estimates so far, they're saying probably the end of the year for Xbox.
Well, either way, I think there's going to be a new influx of players for that. I think there's going to be people, I know that there's people that are playing Baldur's Gate 3. I've seen a lot of obviously it's on my algorithm where I'm scrolling through Instagram or YouTube Shorts or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm seeing people and they're with clips and the comments are always like, what game is this? What game is this? What game is this? So there's going to be people playing this game that have no idea about D&D.
I saw a post today, I think, on Reddit that someone was saying that it's having like a second, like a honeymoon phase already.
Yeah.
Where it's like having a whole nother wave of influx of players. And I think it's for reasons like you're saying, because it's so popular and makes for such good clips and things that it's breaching beyond the realm of, like, it initially breached beyond the realm of like D&D gamers and stuff, then to just the massive gamers, and now it's breaching beyond to like casual gamers. That they're like, oh, this looks fun. What is this thing?
And so that's why we've talked about Dungeons and Dragons in the past a couple times. We've talked about, we did a really long character creation one, talking about different classes. That was a really long episode, like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit all over the place. Honestly, it was one of our earlier episodes. So today we just kind of want to talk about, like, if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 or not, if you've if you've thought about playing Dungeons and Dragons because you see it everywhere, we're just we want to talk about how to get into it.
Right. Because it is kind of, I mean, it's already in the past, I don't know, number of years gained popularity by a lot. Like, the popularity of it is increasing all the time, especially thanks to, there's all the podcasts that are coming out that are doing live plays of it, like Critical Role and all that stuff. And then there's these video games like this that have come out that just even fuel that fire even more. And then anybody who's on Reddit, they can't help but see, there's these posts that even make it on like the r/all stuff that, hey, yeah, this game is number one everywhere. So people who have no idea about, RPGs or D&D or any of that stuff, they're still seeing this and like, I think this game's number one over everything, like
Mhm.
that's going to catch people's attention.
Yep, and it should. And so, for those of you who have never played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, that's what we're talking about. There's other editions of Dungeons and Dragons like 3.5 and 4, and the old like D&D 2, like or the AD&D, and Pathfinder. There's a bunch of those games out there, but the most, what most everybody knows is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, there was some issues in the past with Wizards of the Coast, and there was kind of, a lot of gamer feedback, and some of that was listened to, and some people have decided to leave the system forever. But the system's not going to die because it is the name brand system. D&D is the name brand, turn-based RPG game that you play with your friends at a table or online or whatever. So we're going to talk about how to get into that.
Right.
Not so much the like the rules and that kind of thing. We're going to talk about how to find a game and how to develop a game as well. Because there's two ways to play. There's being a dungeon master or game master, right? Where you're creating and running and kind of being the rule master and setting the tone in the story. And there's being a player and going on this journey and this adventure and everything like that.
And I guess even beyond that, then there's even two branches from that there's in person and online.
Absolutely.
So that's another aspect of it that we'll talk about.
So let's talk about how you can find a game. So you've played Baldur's Gate 3, or you've seen it, or you've I know Stranger Things is probably about to come back out, at some point, and that was a huge influx of gamers from that.
Yeah, they like the kids played that on there, didn't they? Like I mean, just kind of touched on it.
They touched on it enough where, and like they called some of the monsters things based on the D&D games, like what the monsters were, like Vecna, the Lich King, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But if you're looking to play a game, some places to look and find somewhere to find. You have to decide whether you want to play in person, right? If you know a friend that's a DM or GM, just ask them like, "Hey, what do I need to do to get into a game?"
Yeah, are you running a game currently? Would you like to?
Would you like to? If you're looking to run a game or be part of a game in person, there are typically gaming groups on Facebook. So I'm a part of a few, I don't do much on Facebook, but I am a part of a few forums on there, which are pretty
I was going to say, and you'll know more about this discovery aspect of it than I did. You've definitely done a lot more than that than I have.
So one of the places I would go to is if you are a Facebook user, that's something you can do. You can go on Facebook. You can look for, like I'm part of like a Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm part of a DM group. I'm part of like a fathers, DM, Dungeons and Dragons group. I don't really post on those, but I see a lot of people looking for groups. And so try to find a looking for group LFG forum for that. Like, hey, I'm new. I want to play this. People have no problem teaching you. People seem to love inviting people into this.
Right.
It is a very welcoming community.
I think we touched on that a while back, that most 9 out of the 10, DMs or GMs, like they're going to be super welcoming and super supportive to teach people about, how to play and stuff, even if you have no idea or have never played before.
The other issue is too, you might live somewhere, like if you're from McPherson, Kansas, right? Or something like that, there's not a whole lot of people that live there. And maybe the people that are GMs or DMs there aren't people you want to play a game with, right? So then there's always the option of going somewhere else. Maybe most cities of over like, over 20,000, I would say, there's typically like a game store that has things like Warhammer 40K, Warhammer 40K, Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering is huge. And there's always like a kind of like a weekly DM or like a weekly D&D session or something like that. So if you're looking for like an in-person game to get involved with and you don't want to be a DM or GM, those are some places to go check out first. As well as Reddit. I would say the Reddit looking for game sections, like getting into that, just make a post in like one of the D&D subreddits or something like that, looking for game in person in this area.
Right.
Online. This is how I got into the most. Like, this is how I got enraptured into it.
Yeah, I had played a couple in-person games, like a few things beforehand and stuff, but I mean, already like a majority of my time is spent, obviously through our games and stuff, have been online through Roll20.
And which I enjoy Roll20. It's great. Yeah. We enjoyed it in person. It ran a long time in person, but everybody seemed to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to do more in-person games for the sessions that I run. But for online play, which I think is kind of like the easiest way to get into it and the easiest way to learn the system, a couple places you can go. So there's a Start Playing Games website. Now, one of the big hangups with it when you're looking for a game there is most of the sessions are by DMs and GMs who are pay to play, which can be a turnoff. If you're on a budget, you don't want to pay $10 or $15 a month to be part of a group. There's no issue with that. I totally get that. So that's where I would take you to next would be Roll20. So make a free Roll20 account, right? Don't have to pay for one of the memberships. Because the memberships are more for dungeon masters than anything else.
Yeah, you get access to more tools and things you can do for your players.
As a player, you don't need anything other than basic free membership. You sign up, go to the directory, search the days of the week that you can do, search the time zone, search the specific game. You look for D&D 5e on there.
They have really good filters that you can, like you're talking about days of the week or like bi-weekly, all that kind of stuff. You can get specifically what fits your schedule and what you're looking for.
Click search on that. Start looking. Look for somebody that might have a plus or premium membership. There's nothing to say that somebody with a free membership can't run a good game. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if they don't have a lot of hours in the game, because that's another thing, Roll20 will also tell you this person has played 1,000 hours, 20 hours. If you see somebody with like 4 or 5 hours on there and they have a free membership, they're probably not going to be invested. I would hazard to guess that that game is going to fall apart pretty quick as people are going to stop meeting for sessions or whatever. There's also pay to play on there, which one positive thing of pay to play is that you typically have more serious players who are willing to stick it out.
Right. They're there because they really want to play. And so they're invested not only their time, but their money. So they're going to be more invested in their play style and their characters and stuff.
Absolutely. And they're going to show up to the games, which is one of the reasons why DMs run it. I think, I had talked about wanting to run a public one on Roll20 in the past with my homebrew setting. And I would probably want it to be pay to play, but not in as much as some people are, maybe like $5 bi-weekly or something like that.
Yeah.
But only for the sake of people showing up and then just investing back into my premium membership or whatever.
If anything, just to cover the cost of getting the pro tools.
Yeah, which is fine. But so Roll20, that's one of the best ones. We really enjoy it. Now there's a lot of like guff in the online gaming community for that about it and like what's
Foundry?
Foundry, people really love Foundry. There's no issues with it. I came to Roll20 and I DM on Roll20 and I find it pretty seamless. Now I'm sure Foundry has some stuff on there that people are like, oh, Foundry's way better.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing with Foundry is people have to have have Foundry downloaded. Now they can get it for free from you, but they have to download the actual software on the computer, as far as I know. And that's kind of an extra hang up where people are going to be like, it's not.
You don't just log onto a website.
It's a bridge too far for them, right? So usually having a Discord account, because most players, most campaigns and everything have a Discord, and on their Discord is how they use they do their audio, and that's how they talk to each other in there. And then you actually play on the website as you're going. Roll20 would definitely be my suggestion. I've become a Roll20 fan. They keep adding new things. One of the most recent things is like now we can measure cones. They've added like add area of effect measurements.
Oh, right.
They made it way easier
really
than what it used to be. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Even this Saturday for our Saturday campaign.
I'm happy that you went on vacation, but I'm like jonesing to get back into the game too.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of fun stuff coming up in our game. So, Roll20 would be one of the places I would go. So your local gaming store, Facebook groups, Instagram's not usually the best because most of the time Instagram, there's not like forums and it's not as easy to guide. You might be able to find a page or something that has that kind of thing. Startplayinggames.com, Reddit, any of that stuff. You know, you could always just search like play games around Biloxi, Mississippi, and you know, they'll come up with something. They'll usually get a Google ad or something like that. Let's talk about things you would need. So in person, right? Let's say you can't find 20-sided dice or 12-sided dice or 6-sided dice. Talk to your DM ahead of time. But it's as simple as having it on your phone. You can Google, go to Google right now, and you type in roll D20.
And in the search bar.
In the search bar. And it'll literally, a dice will come up, and you can click it, and it will roll a random number. And then you can choose how many of those you're rolling.
Right. There's free apps you can download from either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store that are, you know, dice rollers that have more complex. Like you can choose, you know, how many, I want to do 3d6 and then add 4 or whatever, or then add multiple things together. You can make dice groups that roll all oh, I know my sneak attack is 3d6, so I just hit that and it'll automatically roll what I need it to.
Yeah.
There's apps that can do that. But granted, like you mentioned, those local game stores, those are great places to go. They'll have like dozens of different, you know, cool dice that you can go there if you want to pick up a physical set. And oftentimes, from the DMs I've known, like that's one kind of thing that happens after being a DM is you kind of accumulate a lot of dice.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you find it like a decent DM, a lot of them wouldn't care to be like, I'll give you a set of dice. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. So you don't have to have physical dice. And in some game stores, you'll show up and you'll make your character sheet ad hoc, like there, and run the game there. It might even be a one-off session, which is not a bad thing to get into. The important thing is to follow the rules, listen to what your DM has to say so they can guide you through everything. You don't have to know the rules. It's a pretty easy game to understand once you get the hang of it. You know, you can move. You got movements, actions, bonus actions, and reactions essentially in combat. But outside of that, it's a lot of role play.
Yeah.
And so be prepared to role play as your character. You know,
I think we talked about that in one of our previous D&D episodes. That can be a little tough when you start out. You know, just getting comfortable. You know, it can be a little awkward at first. You know, getting comfortable in that around new people or whatever. But once you're around people, like a group of other people, and they're all doing it, and they're all like way into it, it definitely eases the load on that, and being able to
100%
go fine with it.
And that's why I would say online, I think, is the easiest way to go because you have that veil. Most of the time, the games are not video; they are audio only. And so when they're audio only, you don't have to worry about somebody seeing your face or whatever. So you're allowed to be. You're allowed to role play. You can make your funny voices up. I've known people that use soundboards for their things. You use a soundboard for your Minotaur. I've got a guy that uses a soundboard in my Friday games that I play. So online play, I think, is the best way. So as a player, that's what I would do. You don't need to know the rules, but it definitely helps. Now, if you're trying to find some resources, obviously you can go to Wizards of the Coast or any of the online print stores and find books. The Player's Handbook, right? You can find that on there.
Yeah.
You can find the Dungeon Master Guide. You can find all that stuff. You can find actual modules pre-written to get from like D&D Beyond and all these things. However, there are online resources, which my goal for this is just to show how easy it is to get into.
Oh, yeah.
On your phone right now, you can go to 5e tools, as in D&D 5e tools. Right?
It's the number 5, like the actual
number 5e tools. And .com. It'll pull up an entire thing with all of this content in it, and you can see the rules. You can see the rules. You can see how different things work. You can see classes. You can see books that have been published. You can see all this stuff, and it is a significant help for those people who are trying to learn. Like there's a section for Dungeon Masters. I use the Dungeon Master screen on there pretty regularly.
Yeah, like when you open up the main page, they even have it broken down to like, you know, as far as you have players, rules, and Dungeon Masters, and each of those have subsections. Like for the players, they list out the races, classes, backgrounds, weapons, all that sort of stuff. And you can just click on it, and it has everything there. They have like really good filters that you can filter stuff by if you know about any of that things. But it's a website that anytime that we play D&D and any of our games, I always have this open in a separate window, and I'll consult it, or like we'll come across something, or see some enemy or find some item or I just can't remember something about my class, and I can just search it on there real quick, and it has the information right at your fingertips, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a really easy online tool to use. I will also say D&D Beyond, which Wizards of the Coast, who kind of hold the license rights to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and the new 1 D&D or whatever's coming out. That is another site, but there is kind of a pay to learn. You can see the basic stuff on there, but you have to pay to see more things. 5e tools, you don't. You can see more things about the classes and races. You can see all the extra material that's been printed. Another website, which I didn't have on my list that Josh just pulled up, is RPG Bot.
I love this one.
It's a really good one. Now, if you're trying to like build a character, this is like a really good one to go to. It's can be a little bit confusing for a newbie, but go in there, you can see like how things mesh. If you're just trying to get together a character for online campaign, and you don't, or like an in-person campaign, you've got a sheet and you're like, hey, show up Thursday and we're going to run, we've got a bunch of DMs and we're going to run tables.
Yeah.
I would look at RPG Bot maybe and be like, okay, so this is some of the stuff I need to take. It kind of gives you like a blue is good, and green's okay, and orange is meh, and red's bad kind of thing for different classes and races and stuff.
They have this standard ranking thing, from one to 4 basically, as far as like if it meshes well with the class or whatever it is, and they go through every race, class, subclass, spells, in conjunction in relation to each other, and rank them all if they're a good option to take or if they're pretty much going to be useless.
Yeah, exactly. And then my favorite, the one that I use most of the time, is actually D&D Wikidot. So not that one, but Wikidot, because I don't love the D&D Wiki because it can be confusing because it seems like a lot of the stuff that posts on there seems like.
This one I was going to mention just purely for the homebrew stuff.
There are some homebrew things on there, and they are good.
Yeah,
however,
like homebrew classes, you can find some pretty cool stuff. I've used that for just some ideas, but it's a cooler place just to maybe get some ideas for some alternate stuff.
Yeah, so there is a D&D 5e wiki, and then there's the Wikidot page. So the Wikidot page is what I typically use, and it's got all the rules, adventuring gear, classes. It's got stuff from all the newest books in there that keeps it up to date. It went down at one point to just like Russian hacking and like the D&D, like maybe like a year ago, and the D&D community was making all kinds of memes like, how dare they, about bring down D&D Wikidot.
Just trying to play our games.
Exactly. So D&D Beyond, online resource, 5e tools, online resource, RPG Bot, online resource, D&D Wikidot, and D&D Wiki. And then you got your source books. So Wizards of the Coast, even though other people are allowed to print certain things for 5e, like Kobold Press and other groups, the Wizards of the Coast Player Handbook is how most people are going off of. And you'll find a lot of people, when you're looking at these forums on Roll20, will say, I only allow races and classes from the Player's Handbook, or all published Wizards of the Coast material. Some people like, I allow this. So that's a good way to learn. If you like the book, the books are pretty. They've got good art. They're kind of fun to read.
Yeah, they're fun just to look at and read.
It's a fun book to have. It's a picture book for adults. It's nice.
Right. I've got mine in the other room. Exactly.
So those are some ways to get into it as a player, right? I mean, it's really simple. Just have be willing to show up to sessions, be willing to role play, get into it as you go, right? Right now in the campaign that I'm playing with on Fridays, the one that I'm a player in, my character's been kind of quiet. That's because it kind of fits the narrative of where we're at. He doesn't have a reason to be super loud and outgoing, but I'm looking forward to getting more into that character as we go. I've got a great DM. I responded to a Roll20 ad that she posted one time because they lost a player. She did like this little questionnaire with me to make sure I wasn't like a weirdo.
Yeah, weirdo, super flaky or something.
Weirdo, it's okay to be a weirdo. This is a geek-oriented podcast. It's okay if you consider yourself weird or nerdy or whatever. The issue is when you're
We
like,
go from weirdo to creeper.
yeah, creep. You will find that occasionally. You know, I joined one, and the guy had so many rules, and it sounded like a really cool rule set. And then I started reading that there was like he didn't want to skip over sexual graphic content and like all this other stuff. And I was like, oh no, I'm out. Like I joined it, never played a game. I was in their Discord for maybe like 10 minutes. And I was like, this is not going to work. And I was like, hey man, sorry, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to play this. It was a little bit weird stuff, but to each their own. That existed for them, but you know,
not for us.
But so I have no idea who she is. I have no idea what she looks like. I don't know anything about her. I just know she runs great D&D games. And same, all these people, they're random folks. You know, I think one guy we know for sure is in Poland, or he told us he's in Poland because we'll be playing till like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, or sorry, till 11 or 12 at night. And he's like, well, it's 6 a.m. here.
Jeez.
He's like, but I woke up like an hour before the game started just to play. Essentially, like his schedule's all messed up.
Dang.
So just have the ability, have the want to play, be willing to learn the rules, pay it to, even if you, and the one thing I would say is if you see the rules are not a die hard thing.
That's one of the things I love about Dungeons and Dragons.
D&D is meant for the players. It's meant for the players to have fun. It's meant for the DM to have fun. DMs will put their own spin on rules. They'll have their own kind of homebrew rules. I actually was listening to, I forget what the interview was, but it was Matt Mercer, the GM for Critical Role, talking about rules specifically. I mean, I think it was an old video, and I think his quote that he mentioned was, he follows the rules to the point that they don't become fun anymore. And if bending the rules a little bit, you know, makes it fun for this situation or this character's experience, or to just do something cool, then, you know, you can bend the rules or whatever. Like, he'll follow the rules, but only like till if it doesn't get fun. Then, you know, what's the point? You're there to play games and have fun. Yes, exactly. And it's like what I've talked about this several times. I talked about it in our class guide that we talked about, which was, like I said, what was one of our earlier episodes, and we were a little bit all over the place, and it was long and maybe a little hard to follow. But I'll say this. The goal of the Dungeon Master, Game Master, is to have fun yourself. You're a player in this, but also, in my mind, make your players feel like they're heroes and make sure that they have fun. Yes. And that's my goal. So,
and you do a great job at that.
Thank you. There are a lot of people who maybe don't enjoy playing, or they are creative. They're creative types, and they, outside of character creation, maybe they've got a world in their head, or maybe they want to be the game master. So this is just some of my tips and places to go as a game master getting into it. So you don't have to be an expert on the rules. Pay attention to them. So one of the things I would do if you were a game master is I would use something like 5e tools. So as a game master, my two biggest things would be 5e tools online, reading the rules, understanding them. And I would also watch somebody like Matt Mercer. Now, Matt Mercer kind of has a stigma in the D&D community that already exists, because they call it the Matt Mercer effect, where some DMs don't feel like they're doing as good as him, or people expect every DM to be
like him. Yeah.
Matt Mercer, who is a voice actor in Hollywood,
right?
Who can do different voices and has been doing it for a long time. So he's super experienced, and he's super passionate, and he's also getting paid to do it, right?
Yeah.
I like Matt Mercer. I try to do as much as I can like him, or at least, you know, in the descriptions and that kind of thing, as much as possible, because he has done such a good job. I try to emulate some of that in my own guys, right? But I would watch some Critical Role or something like that, kind of get a hang of the thing. I would go play a game or two, play a couple of sessions. You know, it's kind of like playing Monopoly. Once you've played a Monopoly game, you kind of know how it goes. Yeah. Right? So go play a one-off session or get into a campaign for a little bit. Yeah. Then hop into your GM stuff. Now, 5e tools is nice because there's actually a DM screen built into it. You can pick and choose. On my DM screen, it's got a lot of the rules, like falling rules and stuff like that, even though we kind of use our own. It has a lot of those things on it. There's little tabs, and you can pick the stuff that you want to add to it. And it's usually the stuff that's the most confusing, or stuff I need to reference quickly if a weird situation comes up. There are a lot of YouTube resources, right? One of the ones I used to really enjoy, WebDM, as they've not been really making content. lately. They've moved to a different type of thing. But things like the Dungeon Dudes, there are so many other D&D resources out there to go look at and to go look at rules. The Dungeon Dudes do a really good job. I know one of our players that our most recent player that got into our game on Saturdays, I remember he said he had watched quite a bit of their stuff before as he was making his character. He was interested in that stuff. And they've got a lot of like, this is how to play so-and-so. This is how to play this class. This is the rankings of these things. These are the settings we like.
Right.
Watch some of that stuff. Have a general idea. You don't have to become an expert in it, but just be able to know the rules. The other thing I would say is make up your own rule. Have an idea on what you want your own rules to be. If you don't like the fall, damage rules, just come up with it and make sure everybody knows it. Any players that you get know it at the beginning. Now, if you have an experienced player that you're going to DM either online or in person, just make sure that they're aware that you're the GM, but also be relying on them to help you with certain things. Because even now, like people are like, well, hold on, can I do this? And sometimes I have to go back and look at things, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can.
It's useful too. Oftentimes you'll have in the game, you'll kind of have this like secondary like rules person who's also like pretty well like knowledgeable about stuff. Like I know sometimes I kind of feel that role that if you're busy or you're like trying to do DM stuff or need to know something, I may know it as well.
Or you'll even cut somebody out. You'll cut another player off at the pass, but whoa, you can't do that, unfortunately. And because it's a preset rule in our thing, not because Josh is trying to be a negative Nancy.
Exactly. I just like to be fair.
Exactly. So some source books that you should probably get. Obviously, the Dungeon Master Guide. Obviously, the Player's Handbook. Those are two good things to have as a Dungeon Master. I own both of those from Wizards of the Coast.
Monster Manual.
Monster Manual's not a...
Those are the kind of the three things that started. That's the kind of the start. You can even get like a starter kit that has like those three things.
Yeah, I think you can go to Barnes & Noble and get this like a starter kit or something like that. I bought the Player's Handbook first, then I bought the Dungeon Master Guide. And even then, I'm using 5e tools and D&D Wiki more than I do anything else.
If you don't want to, some of those books they can be like $20-$30 sometimes. So if you don't quite want to dish the money out on a physical thing, all that information's available on there.
Absolutely. Some other things I want to bring up is there are you need to decide what setting you're going to be in. So as a dungeon master, you decide what you're going to do. Are you going to run a game that is of your own creation? Are you going to create your own maps and own world? Or are you going to play some of the pre-written material? So some pre-written material that I would look at are any of the Wizards of the Coast material. You can find people like another YouTuber I like is like XP to Level 3. He's a good one that has some videos on campaign settings as well as the Dungeon Dudes on YouTube. Find one that you think will be good. I think like the Lost Mines of Fendelver is one of the typical like intro DM campaigns that people do. And it's like a level 1 to 3 or level 1 to 5 campaign. Go on there, get the book, use it, take a look at it, change some stuff for yourself though. If you don't like, the goblins that are being used at the beginning or whatever there is, then, change one to an orc or, whatever. Like don't make it an ancient dragon when they're level 1, because that's not going to work out well for them. We want our players to have fun.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing, I just had an idea, like you tell them you're doing a level 1 Fendelver, then you kill them all in the beginning and then they have to come back in the future.
Oh my gosh.
And they're resurrected, and that'd be interesting. Anyways, so I would look at that. So look at your source books for sure. The actual hard copies things they're easy read. They're a good way to look at things.
Yeah. And
then choose whether you're going to run a module. When I read the modules and I look at them, they're, as an ADD person who is not good always following along, I prefer to write my own stuff.
I was saying, do you want to explain what a module is?
So let's talk about module. Modules are pre-written campaigns, right? It's like a video game. This is what's expected to happen. This is what we suggest your characters start at. These are the things they're going to run into along the way. They always encourage creative choice.
Of course.
However, people know if you get into a Curse of Strahd campaign, right, which is one of the modules that Wizards of the Coast has put out, and you don't run into vampires, and it's all set in like a fairy Candyland, it's going to be really confusing. People will join a Curse of Strahd campaign because they're looking for
expecting a specific type of deal,
looking for dark fantasy, vampires, monsters in the in the mist, that kind of thing. You can tweak it and do whatever you want with it, but in the end, you're ultimately looking to like, oh, I'm probably going to have to run into Strawn von Zarevik, the big vampire at the end. So that's something to look into. So modules are fun, that they have the pre-written material in there. If you don't want to come up with a village name or 10,000 village names or whatever, and you want to put them in one spot, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, you kind of want to dive right into a campaign without necessarily all the legwork of creating the world and all the stuff within it. At least, it's early on in your DM career, your DM time. Just grab one of those. It's got it all laid out. You can just kind of follow through the book and take your players along the way with it. And it's a fairly simple process. Yeah.
Lost Mines of Fendelver, I think, is like one of the most intro campaigns. I think it's one of the ones some people even get as like a starter package, like a Barnes & Noble thing. Get that, run people through it if you want, if that's what you're into. If you're somebody like me who likes writing, right? I think if you're a writer and you struggle with writer's block and you have trouble getting your work out there, and there is kind of a stigma towards people that are creative writers being DMs at certain times because they tend to make the game too much about themselves, right? Because it's their world and they get a little bit too invested.
Story they're writing.
They're too invested into it. It's nice to run because all you have to do is do the setting. You can voice act some of the NPCs and that kind of thing. Be careful not to have your own DMPC that you're playing as part of the party, because you don't want to make the suggestions. Like they need to have the freedom of choice, and you can guide them to certain areas. You can, somebody like, hey, don't go out into the Black Forest at night or whatever, like super spooky. And then they go out to the Black Forest and you're like, well, they shouldn't have done that because they're going to get killed. Because in the book it says this, or in my creation it says this.
Right.
Be cognizant of that. Be aware that like, hey, but the best part is you can do the setting, and then your players write the action for you. And it takes a big load off of your creative writing, I've found, where I can say, this is what has happened. This is what's here. And then my players now make the decision what they're going to do. And I find it super satisfying. It almost kind of scratches that itch for me of being a creative writer.
Right, kind of set up the thing and just let them, create the world and then throw these people in it and let them discover it and explore it on their own and, see what they stumble upon and run into or end up fighting.
Absolutely. And so with that said, there are some other settings. There are some other people. So Kobold Press is another large press that, printing press that prints D&D material books. They are famous. They have the Midgard setting, which if I hadn't created my own world, I really like it. And I probably would have run that for our upcoming D&D podcast that we've been working on for, almost a year now. It has a lot of stuff. It has pre-written material. It's got pre-written campaigns that you can get for it. So Kobold Press is a good way to go. I would also say Wizards of the Coast material, and then look at some of the other, especially like large D&D, like YouTubers have made their own material. I forget what the Dungeons dudes have. They have their own like campaign setting that they actually have a live play campaign of. You can watch them as well. They're not, you can see some rules and everything. They're not quite as, obviously they are not Matt Mercer. They're not professional voice actors like the Critical Role series is, but it would be a lot closer to what you would see from your group of friends, because that's what they are. They're just dudes. So look at like some of those pre-written campaign settings that other people might have, because there might be something that scratches the itch. There's also other things that follow 5e, like there's a Cyberpunk 5e program I really like.
That's what I was going to mention. You talk about, settings and things, and I thought that's what you're going to say. Is like, it also doesn't have to even be fantasy.
No.
You could be in a futuristic cyberpunk world. I'm kind of very slowly building my own campaign in a cyberpunk setting. But you can have, like space stuff, with spaceships. We've done a Star Wars one that we mentioned in the past as well.
Absolutely.
Like,
so
There's a lot of ways you can go with it.
Our friend Steve from Scotland, who's played with us before and is going to be part of our podcast, who's an excellent role player. He went to a big convention, and we're going to have him on the podcast at some point with possibly his GM. But they went to a big convention, and there was a Highlander 5e content, and there are a lot of things that have been made into the 5e rule set from specific, like Marvel heroes or whatever,
Right.
Star Wars 5e. You can find those type of things that might scratch your itch more than people, casting spells. Maybe you want it to be force powers. Maybe you want it to be whatever. That's something you can definitely get into. The next thing I would say is, if you're going to create your own world and it's in your head, you don't know what to do, these are some websites and places you can go that'll help you with that. So World Anvil is a good place to kind of store your ideas. It's not super user friendly. I like to think I'm somewhat tech savvy, but sometimes trying to find everything is not easy. Or format everything correctly is not easy. I remember making calendars on there and then not being able to find them, and then find them in a whole other place. Incarnate, INKARNATE, right?
That's the map maker thing, isn't it?
It's a good map maker. You can make world maps on there if you want to, or most likely the best thing to do, especially if you're doing online campaigns, is make a battle map.
Yeah.
Right? So making battle maps on there, making grass and adding some trees, maybe putting a cart, and then, stuff on there. There's things you drag out to the map. It's very simple.
Yeah.
You can play around with it in 10 seconds and kind of understand if you've got any kind of computer knowledge. The last one I would say is Asgar. Let me make sure I'm saying it right, / spelling it right. Right? AZGAAR. So if you Google that, it is very much a world generator.
Okay.
Right? That's how I built my campaign setting of Zetnora.
Well, right.
Was with Asgar. And
not Asgard as in
Asgard.
Loki.
AZGAAR. Whatever that comes out phonetically to you from whatever country you're in English, that's what it is. It'll auto-generate a thing the second you get on there. Or you can create your own. You can kind of tell it what you're looking for. If you're looking for a more simple thing, you can. I think God knows how many nation states I have in my campaign setting with lore and everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
The best part is when you generate something, it generates everything for you. So if you want to generate the military forces, click it and it'll generate military forces, generate names, generate city names, that kind of thing. Or you can go in there and put them on there, add notes to everything. So I would use Incarnate for battle maps online, Asgar for world maps, and then use something like 5e tools for rules. Mm-hmm. And I think you're off to a set. And then I personally would use Roll20. So as a DM, this is how simple it is, right? As a DM, you would get on Roll20. You would create a game, right? Play around with some of the settings on there, build a battle map, drag it, copy, paste it, then place it on the map layer of Roll20. Boom. That's how simple it is. You can adjust the grid on there to how you want. It's a very simple setting to do. Help people with their character sheets. Just watch some Roll20 things as far as character sheets. Make sure you've selected that it's going to be a D&D 5e game and the players are going to use a D&D 5e character sheet.
Right.
And then everything else is click. You can drag, if you've got the basic rule set, you can drag certain monsters from the codex, essentially, into the game.
And again, on the player side, that's like you said, it's one of the easiest ways to get into it because it takes all the math out of it.
All the math is gone. It rolls everything.
You have your weapon.
You.
It says longsword. You click on it, and it does it.
Yes, exactly. And it's the same thing for dungeon masters. If you don't want to create your own monsters, that's one of the things that gets me in the most trouble, and the thing I spend the most time on is I'm creating all these different people and everything from scratch, which I think is nice, and it gives me a little creative outlet. But also, it takes up time. Yeah, it takes up time. Whereas I can just, if I want to bring an ogre in, I can search ogre. It comes up. I can just drag its little token from there right onto the thing, and then I have its character sheet ready to go. I can click it and it's throwing it into our thing where everybody can see what it's rolling. And then I can click damage or what I can do the saves that are necessary.
Yeah. But that's really useful that it just has all that stuff built into it like that. Like as a tool itself, it makes it really easy for you.
It is. It's really great. But in-person games have their own, special thing going on. So if you play Baldur's Gate 3, you're like, I really like this.
Mm-hmm.
You should try it.
I'd like to play this in person or on, an online version with some friends, do some things, and make up my own other character, or even my character that I made in Baldur's Gate is my custom character. I want to act that out and role play as that character in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I kind of did the opposite. My first D&D character I made in real life in my first campaign I played years ago. That was my first character I made in Baldur's Gate when the game came out. I just recreated that character to play as on my first full playthrough. And so far I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Having fun with that, like the character creation, the all the things that you can do in Baldur's Gate 3, which we've been so impressed with. There's still things you can't do because there's a coding thing, but there is no coding in our minds, right?
Right.
Except we can do what we want, right? Mm-hmm. You can choose to, like maybe I'm going to jump off the cat. I can't fly everywhere like I could. In Baldur's Gate 3, you can fly.
You can fly, but you still have to land on a surface.
Yes,
like
exactly.
You can't be in 3D space, like floating above stuff.
So maybe in the real game, like if you're playing in person or online, you have more freedom than you would for a computer game. Also, you don't own an Xbox, you don't own a PlayStation, and your PC sure can't run it.
Right.
Guess what? You can play.
Your mind can.
That's right. You could play. Go online, find a 5e campaign for Descent into Avernus. That's a Baldur's Gate, centric D&D session, right? That goes down into the hells of the Faerun of that, of the Wizards of the Coast stuff.
Yeah.
Play that, go online, play that. If you've got an okay computer, you can do it, as long as you can have a steady internet connection, you can run Discord. I mean, I think most modern laptops, even work-oriented ones, can run that seamlessly.
This computer we use for the podcast stuff, I was playing on a 2011 laptop, and it wasn't super smooth, but I could still play on it.
So yeah, it wasn't like you needed a high-end PC to run it. Exactly. So yeah, that's just a little bit of how to get into it. It's really that simple.
Yep.
Go to your local game store. If that's a little weird to you, or maybe that's not your style of people or whatever, and you're like, I don't want to go on Yu-Gi-Oh! Night. That's not my crowd, right? Or Magic the Gathering, whatever. That's to each their own, right? Some people love it. Some people don't like it. Go online. Go to Roll20. Go to Reddit. Go to Facebook looking for groups.
Yeah.
Find something that fits you because it's out there.
Yeah.
And there are people dying to play, and there are people who are losing players because they're not ready to go or they're not like into it, right? It's super simple. If you're trying to create a session, or if you're like, I want to be a GM, I like world building, I like creating things, have it in mind that your players need to have fun, you need to have fun, and either use pre-written modules. You can find them at the places we talked about, or it's as simple as going and making them in MS, go to Paint, on your computer.
You could totally use Paint and just scribble out some stuff. It'd work fine. Yeah.
I would consider Asgard. Make sure you save it correctly. That's the biggest thing about Asgard. Every time you open it, it opens to a new one. It creates a whole brand new world.
Oh.
And I would create a world, and I would save it, and I would make sure that there's a way to go in there and change it to open to that previously saved world. And that's what I would do.
Right. That makes sense.
That's the best way to do it. But it's out there. It's ready for you. You can do it. You can play Baldur's Gate 3 for the rest of your life, and you can play whatever D&D campaign you want. And we want you guys to do it, because I think that's one of the biggest things is like the gatekeeping is kind of gone. Everybody a lot of people are really into nerdy stuff right now and geek stuff, and I hope that wave continues. And it's one of those things that Josh and I have found to be some of the most fun. as first-person shooter gamers or third-person shooter gamers.
Yeah, we lived that life for a long time.
Or real-time strategy. You know, like I'm a big real-time strategy guy. You know, it's there. It's waiting for us. It's the way to go.
Agreed. So, yeah, our suggestion, check it out. Check out Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. If you find Baldur's Gate 3 fun, you can probably find that with a little bit of creative thinking online or in your local game store. You can make brand new friends and, you know, a whole new walk of people out there who are willing to help you out.
Likewise, just because mention it, if you're a big D&D person and you haven't played Baldur's Gate, go play that game. Get that game and play it.
Yeah, if you've got a computer able to run it, you're not going to be.
Dude, you're missing out if you're not playing this game right now. It is like I want to finish the podcast so I can go play it right now.
I know, yeah, and well, hey, let's go ahead and do it. I guess. He's loading it up now.
Oh,
you're gonna be stuck in character creation for like an hour. So
that's fine.
We'll try to have some new. Josh and I are probably going to run a evil campaign at some point.
Yeah, like we wanted to, like, you know, we definitely want to, you know, create and put out some, you know, more content related to the podcast and stuff. But, you know, you got to take time for yourself and your own things as well. So our first kind of playthrough, we wanted, you know, want to just be us.
Well, that and like, you know, the issues with recording while I was on vacation.
It also lined up that you were gone.
Yeah.
So that didn't really help
that
whole situation, but that's okay. I've had so much fun. I haven't had this kind of fun with a game in however long I can remember. It's great. I'm going to rave about it and I'm going to rant about it and be a cheerleader for it forever.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's got the ratings it does. And, you know, it's a smaller, you know, it's not a AAA developer. You know, these guys, I think, had heart and soul that they put into it, and you can tell. And it makes me pretty happy. And it makes me I get excited to play with Josh, you know, because Josh and I will go through these lulls where we're not playing online as much together.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of doing our own thing. And this is one of those games. It's like Josh and I are now staying up in the evenings and sacrificing our morning times.
I'm like giving up some sleep to be able to play this thing, and I don't even care.
Yeah, it's a great game. We hope you play it. We hope you play D&D in person or online. We hope that you get into the community. We hope that you become a creator. We hope that you enjoy this thing that we enjoy as much, and we hope that you guys geek out about it.
Right. And in addition to that, we hope you become part of our community. That would also be awesome.
Tell us more about that, Josh.
Well, you can join our community. We have a Discord, a Geek ETC Discord. And you can be a part of that by going to patreon.com/geeketc podcast and sign up there, help support the show for as little as $1 a month. And you can come join. You get an invite to join our Discord and join our growing community there. There's only a few of us at the moment, but we're hoping to grow that. You can come in there and chat about all kinds of, you know, geeky topics that people are into: music, movies, TV shows, you know, UFOs and aliens. Cars, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and we know we've talked about a lot of alien stuff and a lot of D&D content, but really it's just lined up that's been what's out, you know?
Yeah, those are big topics right now, and that's what we like. You know, and we're doing this podcast because it's what we want to do. It's about what we geek out about. So
geeks fight better together?
Yes, they do. And we fight well together over at Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, where you can find all of our content at. Just search Geek ETC Podcast on any of those platforms. You can find us there. Also, if you wouldn't mind, go onto iTunes or Spotify or, you know, Amazon Podcast and leave us a rating or a review, 5 stars. You know, tell us how awesome and entertaining we are, even if we're not. You know, it's good for our self-esteem at least.
It is. It makes me feel better. And, you know, honestly, check us out too. We ran a giveaway. We have over 600 members. Right. We ran a giveaway and only only 2 people entered it. one of our podcast friends and one of our patrons. And then, you know, it was just a 50-50 shot of who got it. And
that's cool.
I felt bad enough. I even gave like a gift card to the as a consolation prize to the guy that didn't get it. But they got a full copy of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, but you're missing out on some cool stuff.
Yeah,
they got a whole copy of the game.
They got a whole copy of the game, $60 value. So just come back, follow us on there. We try to post stuff on there. We try to put out content fairly regularly. Obviously, with vacations, Josh is going to Japan. We'll try to have everything scheduled for that. But there will be a few hiccups because this is not our primary job. But
yeah, we still have full-time jobs, so we do this when we can.
We appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate our followers. And most of all, we just hope you guys are having fun too.
Exactly. So with that said, we'll leave you for today. And until next week, keep geeking out.